an award with the Democratic Party, and it was announced by Shirley Weber. And now to be able to introduce her is quite an honor. The second most proud I've ever been in politics is a billion-way tie, because every time I'm here speaking to you guys on behalf of our area. I'm gonna talk for a minute about women over 50. If you are over 50, love someone that's over 50, know someone that's over 50, that's a woman, this is for you. I found out last year I got a new doctor, and she wanted to do all kinds of new tests and, kick the tires and check under the hood and everything. And they found out that I have high cholesterol, which is no big deal. I've always known I have it. I got it from my mother, along with a good sense of humor and nice calves. But it was just always something I knew I had, so I didn't really think about it. And she's like, well, we need to put you on medications and this. And it's like, oh, I would rather do anything than go on meds. I said, is there anything else we can do? And she said, well, we can order a coronary CT, and it will look at the arteries going to your heart and see if they have plaque. She said, usually this is the test that I do to people to convince them to go on the meds. So I got my test done, and to my surprise, I'm like 100% clear, so yay for me. I'm very happy about that. About 2 weeks after I had my test, a woman in my parish, my church, died in her 50s, leaving her 7 children without a mother, 2 of them under the age of 10. And so I thought, she'd had the test I had, maybe she would have known. So if you know anybody that is over 50, possibly has high cholesterol or high blood pressure, beg, plead, do whatever they have to do to get this test. It's a coronary CT. I talked, when I begged my doctor, and they said, okay, but it's expensive and insurance doesn't always cover it. I said, I don't care. I said, how expensive is expensive? And she said, $200. I said, okay, I'll do it. I got my bill from my Scripps bill. It was $200. I paid 15 of it. I've got in a letter to our esteemed main speaker's daughter, Shirley Weber, to see if we can get this to be made a state law that all insurance companies must cover this. And I want this to be as public as women knowing you have to get a mammogram and you have to get a bone density, and when you're younger you get PAPs. And I want it to be something that every woman knows is coming. And I guarantee you, I am a huge wimp. It was 100% pain-free. They just put the little stickers on you, and you kind of go through half of an MRI machine. It's like the MRI is only like this long, so you just go in a little bit and then out and in and out, and then you find out what the inside of your arteries look like. And so it's a very valuable tool. I encourage everybody that thinks they might have slight risk, get it done. Talk to your mothers, talk to your aunts, talk to your sisters, husbands, wives, and the thing about, my husband keeps doing, well, what about men's health? The symptoms for women of heart disease are much different than men. So we, a lot of times, just kind of push it off. And women in general, we don't take care of our health enough as we should. And consider it, I only took it seriously when I had a daughter, and I realized I'm setting her an example that a very strong woman takes care of herself, because you can't take care of anybody else until you take care of yourself first. So that's my TED Talk, thank you. Now I have, by the way, Katie is back there selling 50-50 tickets. You can't win if you don't play. How we doing? Okay, and we're going to have Janet is going to come talk to us about our recruiting efforts. Take it away, Janet Castaños.
Hi, everyone. We have been working, the membership committee has been working on trying to build membership, trying to bring in different people from the communities, but especially East County, but not necessarily, but anybody who's interested. So along with the great speakers that we have, like Dr. Weber, we want to figure out ways that we can entice them to join and participate and help us with campaigns and Go Team and all of the things that we do. Well, we thought Wendy Mahalik and I and Merrill Perry have been meeting, gathering ideas, and we came up with a survey. And this survey's on your table. You have a couple of pencils that I tossed around. But if you can take a few minutes, this is going to be your ticket out the door. So in other words, you can't leave unless you put this, fill this out and complete it. If you don't want to put your name, that's fine. If you do, that's fine too. We'd like to know what you're interested in, what our club members would like to have more of, what we can do better. It's all about just gathering data from all of you. If you have any questions, Wendy is roaming around. I will roam around, be happy to answer any questions you have at your table. I think it's pretty comprehensible. We're trying to figure out a way to build our membership back to the way it was pre-COVID. So let us know your ideas. You all have good ideas, I'm sure. Thank you.
Okay, now the main event. She needs no introduction, but she's getting one anyway. Shirley Weber Nash was born in Hope, Arkansas. At 3 years old, her family relocated to Los Angeles. Her family strongly believed in the importance of education, and Shirley received a Bachelor of Arts, Master of Arts, and PhD from UCLA Go Bruins. Right? Is that right? Okay. In 1972, Dr. Weber established the SDSU Department of Africana Studies and taught there for 40 years. And are you still a president emeritus there?
Faculty emeritus, yes.
Dr. Emeritus, okay. From 1988 to 1996, she was on the San Diego Board of Education, eventually becoming its president. She also served as chairwoman of the San Diego Citizens Equal Opportunity Commission. In 2011, she was recruited to run for office in California State Assembly by our very own Tony Atkins. In November 2012, Dr. Weber won her race in the State Assembly with 61% of the vote. Ouch! In December of 2020, California Governor Gavin Newsom appointed Dr. Weber to the position of California Secretary of State. She was confirmed unanimously by the State Senate, and was sworn in on January 29th, 2021. And she easily won her full term in the last election. She's proven she's a winner, she's proven she's a leader, and she's a fighter for all of us. Let's give a big welcome to our Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber. We're gonna do what our former chair used to call the Dick Cavett style interview.
What's a Dick Cavett?
Oh, Dick Cavett. Oh, Cavett. Oh well.
So you can sit here.
I'm good. I'm good. I've been sitting on a plane, so I'm kind of ready to stand. Well, good evening.
Good evening.
It's always good to be home, and I've been delaying coming to you, so I'm really glad that I'm here today. Normally on Wednesdays, I'm in Sacramento or Northern California, so we made special arrangements for me to be here today, to be with you, because I know you meet on Wednesdays, because I was a member, and so just wanted to make sure I got a chance to come and see you all, and it was just one, thank you for your work. Thank you for your support of me over the last 12, 14 years. And thank you for all the work you're doing in La Mesa. I remember when La Mesa turned blue, and the excitement in the party when you became blue, and all the stuff, good stuff that we've done as a result of that. So I really appreciate what you've done and what you continue to do. We're here today, and you know, you've given me so many things to talk about. It's difficult to try to capsulize everything in a small presentation, but I'm gonna do my best to do that, to tell you what we've been doing, what's happening in the Office of Secretary of State, what's happening at the state level, some of the things that we're doing nationally in terms of elections and trying to get the vote out. You know, I accepted the position as Secretary of State with the governor. And like most things, it was not on my life agenda. I had not planned to be in the assembly. I was there. I had not planned to actually be on the school board, and I ended up there. And when the governor called me about being Secretary of State, it was something that I had not applied for, not lobbied for. Other people had. I had not. I think the biggest lobbyist for me, I discovered afterwards, was Tony Atkins, as usual. As she was thinking of who would be the Secretary of State, but most importantly, who would fight for the right to vote unquestionably. And when I was asked to serve, I was like, I'm getting close to retirement from the legislature. I have really this term and another one that I just elected to my 5th term in the legislature when the governor asked me to become Secretary of State. And so I had to think hard and long about it because I enjoyed what I was doing. And some of you participated in a lot of the legislation I did in terms of police force, use of force, issues of racial profiling, citizens, help with senior citizens, doing things that made it easier for us to basically help folks in the community and those kinds of things, and funding projects, funding the Jackie Robinson Y, and so many things that we did over that 8-year period that was really impactful and important, and I was happy to do the work. So when I left the assembly to go to the Secretary of State, a lot of the advocates in the community were furious, obviously, because they felt that nobody else is going to carry this water that you're carrying. But I believed that somebody would, and I was shocked when they discovered it was my daughter. So it was a surprise to me when she actually wanted to run for the assembly. I was just shocked, that she wanted to do that. I did my best to try to talk her out of it, tell her all the negatives, what have you. But she was still determined, and she's doing a great job, and she works well with you guys, and she loves La Mesa, and she sends her regards to all of you. But I decided to take on the challenge of the Secretary of State, primarily because I recognized at some point, before the nomination, I had been asked by one of the persons in the media after the elections, and then after my nomination. And the same thing, I said, this nation is in peril. I said, you may not recognize it, but it is. I said, I've seen it around the world when people start attacking the voting system, start attacking the democracy, trying to form their own little fiefdoms so they could get things done their way, and completely violate the principles of a democracy. I said, it is dangerous what is happening in this country. And they didn't believe me. The press just said, okay, whatever. And then January 6th happened. And everybody's like, you said this nation is in peril. I said, we are. These folks are willing to destroy everything to get what their way. And they're not willing to deal with the normal transference of power that we've seen around that is so indicative of what the kind of democracy we have. And I've seen the whole attack in Zimbabwe and some other places where they've had election and then the president like it, so they have another election, and the president like it, and they have another election until he gets elected, and then he feels it's a valid election. So I've seen that happen, and I saw it brewing here in the United States. And it was only for that reason that I said, okay, I'm not afraid to take on this challenge. My parents had difficulty voting in the Jim Crow South. My grandparents never had a chance to vote. My parents already recognized the sanctity and the sacredness of voting. And who better to do this but than a kid whose parents were sharecroppers, whose grandparents never voted, but who always understood the power of the vote, and whose mother had a polling place in her living room in South Central LA. When they couldn't find places for polling, we actually had elections in our front living room on every election day. No matter how large or how small, our house was the place that people came to vote. So I understood the power of voting and the importance of it, and wanted to make sure that we did what was necessary to accomplish that. These have been some interesting years. I took over Secretary of State in January of 2021, and immediately we had a record number of elections. People getting positions, basically, new folks leaving, going to Washington. Some of our members in the assembly and others decided they weren't going to run at all. They were tired, and it went on and on and on. And so we had a huge number of special elections and changes. And so I I came in thinking I was going to have at least 2 years to figure out what's going on. I had maybe 2 weeks because the elections began immediately. And then, of course, the recall election. And the power and the politics surrounding the recall elections and all those kinds of things were huge in terms of trying to make sure that we did it in a transparent way, and that it was finished when it was over. That we did not find deniers saying over and over again, it wasn't fair, you manipulated this, you manipulated that. In the end, even the number one opponent said it was a fair election, it's over. So we've considered that a victory, given all the stuff that happens in the nation with regards to elections and that are still happening today. And so I take on this challenge with the understanding that we have, in California, we've come a long way in terms of elections. We had tried to do vote by mail some years ago, and we could only get it as a choice, that people could opt into it. COVID changed that. If anything good comes out of COVID, it's that we basically made everybody vote by mail. Everybody got a ballot. And I think there was something like 90% of those, or 85% of those who actually voted in the election were actually absentee ballots in 2020. So the absentee ballot worked. Everything people thought would happen wrong didn't happen. Although we still have election deniers in California, people who believe that they still want to count something. We have folks now who want to count every ballot by hand. That was discussed the other day in one of our counties, and so they are looking at, they've got rid of their machines, they've ended their contract, and now they want to count 100 and some odd ballots by hand. We still have that as if, and so we're still fighting these kinds of things that are out there that really defy information, defy the accuracy of things. Our staff has said, okay, if you count by hand, it's a 25% chance that you will have an error. If you count by machine, the error rate is about 1% or less. So you think counting by hand is obviously better and safer. So anyway, but we're dealing with that up in, I think it's Shasta County, that is trying to decide if they want to vote by hand. And we have others looking into vote by hand as well. So there's a lot of things occurring that really defy what the logic is in California. But fortunately, our office is working to make sure that whatever they choose, they have to be able to implement it. And I'm not sure if there's any way that they can actually implement all the specifications of the law with vote by hand. I mean, counting ballots by hand. You have to verify so many different things, and you have to report so many things in a timely fashion that voting every ballot by hand, counting it would be extremely difficult, if not impossible. So, so we're constantly battling these demons here, but we're not battling them as big as they are across the country. And I think you've seen what is happening across the country. Some other people have a tendency to use elections and things like that as their foundation for the policies that they want to develop. And that's unfortunate. I'm a part of the National Association of Secretaries of State, but I'm also part of the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State. And so the Democrats Secretary of States basically organized over the last 2 years and defeated almost every election denier that was on the ballot. We were very, very proud of that effort because most of us, because I didn't have a really hard election here, I had an election that I had to run for myself. I spent a lot of my time up and down the state as well as out of state helping to raise money for other candidates to defeat the election deniers. Those people, and still I guess it's in Nevada, the governor believes that she is not the governor, the person who wants to be governor believes she is governor. And as a result, she still wants counts and recounts, even though it's a huge margin. And so it continues on. It continues on with those kinds of things on a regular basis where people want to have more voting. They want to have different kinds of controls. They want to limit the number of absentee ballots. As we have seen, absentee ballots will increase sometimes participation. That is, for us, would be exciting. For them, it's horrible because you're empowering people who normally would not vote to vote. And that is not a desired outcome for so many people. So we have, in California, as a result of COVID, we put in a special piece of legislation that allowed everybody to get a ballot by mail. That was then in 2021 was voted in to become the permanent way for California to vote. That everyone will receive a ballot by mail. Many of them will have up to 11 days to vote. There will be a number of places in-person voting. Those who are VCA counties, which are voter choice counties, will not only they will have 11 days, they will also have vote centers so that you can go anywhere in the county and get your ballot and vote. You can still mail your ballot in, or you can take it into any voting center or take it into the registrar of voters. So we're trying to increase the ways in which you can vote. Our policy is more days, more ways. You'll have more days to vote, there'll be more ways for you to vote. And so that is what we want to do in order to increasing it. Many of you know you voted for Prop 17, which increased the number of voters because those on parole who've been in prison and who've served their time and now on parole are now able to vote in California. And we're in the process, and in the last election we did the same thing. We're doing outreach into all of those communities to make sure they know they have the right to vote, and make sure that they have access to it, they know how to register to vote, and that they vote, that they basically vote when election day comes. So we're working to try to enfranchise more people in California where other states are working the other way. They're working backwards. They want to limit the number of people who can vote. They want to get rid of permanent absentee ballots so that it makes it hard that every time you want one, you have to apply for it. in advance, that it's not just automatic. And so we have automatic. They want to make people apply every time they come, not there'd be no permanent absentees as there have been in the past, so that every person would have to constantly do that. And they figured that the turnout would be low because people would forget to basically fill out the application, won't know where to find it, you know, the whole bit. And so as a result, it becomes difficult to do that. So we have strengthened it by saying everybody in California gets a ballot and has an opportunity to vote by mail, or an opportunity to vote. They can turn it in at the polling place. They can go to polling places that day. They can still vote at a poll if they choose to, but you'll have access to it and you'll have the ability to do that. And our vote count system allows that to happen so that we don't have duplications of votes. We have been working with different communities. As pointed out, we have, in the efforts of dealing with elections, I have with me Janelle Jackson, who is my outreach coordinator, and they have been responsible for registering over 1 million high school students, pre-registering 1 million high school students. And most of those high school students will be ready to vote in 2024 because we started registering them a couple of years ago, and they get registered. We then also provide them with the opportunity to work on the polls, so they can get school credit as well as get paid to work on some of the polls. So our high school students can do that, and many of them will. So we have over 1 million high school students who are already pre-registered to vote. We will send them a letter when their time comes to say, guess what, it's your time, you know, it's your turn, take advantage of it. So we have a large group of high school students that we're trying to make sure they understand why it is to vote, what is necessary to vote, and how they need to begin to make it a part of their life to be able to be a part of voting. We also have been working with college students, and most college students know they can register to vote online when they register for classes. So it's tacked into their campus registration, so they can register to vote online when they're registering for their classes. So they have no excuses, I can figure out where to do it. Because they figured out how to do their classes, they can figure out how to register to vote. We also have competition among our campuses to see who can have the largest percentage of students registered to vote and the largest turnout. And I think Chico won, Cal State Chico won doing the recall. They won, and so we had to go all the way to Chico to take them their huge trophy. That was okay because they won. And Stanford won this last election, so that we have not only the community colleges, the CSUs, the UCs, and the private institutions are all competing to do that. We have put ballot boxes on every UC campus. The chancellor, the vice president, the president of UC and I met, and so this is our agreement that there's one of those huge, gigantic boxes that look like a big postal mailbox. It's on every UC campus so that the students who are remote and far out have a place to drop their ballots. And they're working with their counties to make sure that happens. So we've been working hard to do that. We've been meeting with our ex-offenders, because many of them still don't think they can vote. And even though they're off parole, they think that we're like some of these other states used to say you can't vote if you've ever committed a felony. That's not California. So we spend a lot of time trying to educate the public, educate the ministers and the organizations, and the ones who are involved with the incarcerated, to let them know that they have a right to vote. There's no application to the governor, there's no appeal to the Supreme Court to get back the voting rights. As soon as you finish your time, you are eligible to vote in California. And in fact, anyone who is a US citizen, who is a resident of California, and is not physically sitting in a state or federal prison for a felony can vote in California. So any person you see walking up and down the street, register them to vote. And that's something most people didn't know and didn't think about. That, all of you here are registered to vote. Everybody that you meet walking up and down the street, shopping in the mall, if they're a US citizen, they can register to vote. There's no issue of, well, I was once a felon, I committed a crime. Not in California. You can register and you can vote in California. So we have a big task of trying to increase that. Right now, our voting is approximately 83% of all eligible Californians are registered to vote. And we should be happy about that. But I'm like most mothers, I don't take 80% of my kids reading. You know, it got to be 100. So I think everyone should be actually registered to vote. And so we have a goal to keep registering people and registering them, and then having them go to polls and vote, because it's their citizen, it's their responsibility, it's their duty to do so. So we have increased the number of registered voters immensely over the last few years, and we want to continue to do that. We're working with our schools and with our different departments to make sure that voting becomes a part of a lifestyle, not just because you're mad at somebody, but because you want to basically make a difference in the community where you live. And that's what it is about, not so much as that, well, we got bad administration, so therefore we're going to go vote, and when we get good administration, we're not going to do anything. No, you should vote every time, regardless of whether you like the people or not. It's your right, it's your responsibility to vote. Let's see what else you have down here for me. I think that's probably most of it. Let me say a couple of things about other parts of the Secretary of State's office. Everybody focuses on voting, and that is extremely important, and it's a big part, but it's not the biggest part of my office. The largest part of my office deals with business affairs. You know, where every business is registered with the Secretary of State, and all of the organizations that are affiliated with it are registered with us. Every nonprofit is registered with us in our office. So that is our largest division. You know, we have, I think, 200 or 300 people who work just in the business division alone. You know, and we have a total of about 600 who work in the Secretary of State's office. So it's interesting that business affairs is really one of our largest, it is our largest division, and touches a whole lot of lives, same as voting. But another division we have is the archives. People forget about that. All of California archives are under the control of the Secretary of State. And it's amazing, the archives that we have. And in fact, if you Google up my office at the sos.ca.gov, and you go in the archives, you'd probably spend hours and hours looking at the exhibits. Amazing exhibits on California history. We have an archivist who is a young woman who is excited about working to diversify our archives. And so we have lots of interviews on women, on people of color, on everybody that has been, where before it was mostly the governors and maybe lieutenant governors got interviewed. It is a lot of Californians that are on our archives now who have made tremendous impact and contributions to California. So if you want to go on the archives, you should. You just click it and go on. We now have a new exhibit on women, and people like Marge Fong Yu, the first woman to be Secretary of State in California, did an amazing job, and so she's on the website, as well as a number of other women who worked on different issues in California, and they're all on the archives. And if you know of some women who should be included, you should contact our archivist and see about it. But there are a lot of videos, there are a lot of displays, all kinds of things. We just finished a huge displays on African Americans in California. We're doing the same thing with Women's History Month. We'll do that. We'll do the API community. We'll do their month as well. So we have a lot of things in the archives that you would probably love to see. Videos that you'd like to click on and look at. Hearing speeches, hearing individuals, and then just looking at how organizations have developed over the years. And all of that information is contained in California's archives. And if you go to California, you can go into the archives itself, into our research rooms, and look up different things of importance to you and your family, different communities and how they grew in California. So we have a really exciting, we have one of the largest archives, state archives in the nation. And our archivist is one of the best in terms of that. Many other states are now trying to build an archive. We have room, we have space, we have special rooms with the air conditioning and this kind of to preserve things that are there. We have some of the oldest Bibles that were in California. So we have an amazing history. And I want to encourage everybody to take advantage of it, to see it. If you go, you'll probably stay there all day trying to figure out a whole lot of other good things. But we have archivists who will help you. So that if you want to find something and you call in and you put in a request, they will find it and try to get it back to you. So we try to keep people moving and understanding that our archives are really our history, and our history is rich and diverse, and it's for everybody. So other than that, I'm pleased to be with you today. Our elections, our next real serious election is coming up in March, as most of you know. We're having our primary this coming year in March of 2024. And so we're running already. People are already signing up to run for office for 2024. And we'll see the groups form by the end of this year, because March is the primary for California. So it's going to come real fast. And so hopefully you'll be prepared and ready for it. I'm supposed to open up for any questions you might have. Yes.
And please repeat the question after I ask it. What about vote counting? It seems like every state has a different rule as to when they can start counting votes. Can we count votes as they come? I used to think that was the way we used to do it, but it doesn't seem like it's that way anymore.
We do some of that. We do. Yeah, vote ballots that come in early. That's how you can tell the results so quickly. Yes, we do. Every state decides its own rules concerning elections. There are some broad things that the federal government has that they have to have in terms of elections, and then there's some things specifically for each state that's there that has, like, each state can pick its own technology to use. You know, what machines they want to use, Dominion or whatever else. They have to be certified by the Secretary of State. but they can choose from an array of machines that we have certified. Yeah. Yes.
Dr. Weber, thank you very much for being here and sharing all that great information about what your office does. I'm so appreciative of what you're doing to increase participation in the process, to increase registration, registered voters, generally increase access, but I'm wondering, has that actually translated to increased voter turnout?
It has, excuse me, voter turnout is always difficult. In our recall, we had tremendous turnout. But I think 70% of the voters actually turned out, which is unusual for a recall. And I think it attributes to the fact that a couple of things. One, the state gave us a whole lot more money to do the recall. And that makes a tremendous difference. They didn't give us that much money for the general election that took place in this past year. They did not give us that much money. But for the recall, for whatever reason, I guess we got like $32 million was it 32 million? Yeah, $32 million for outreach, and so we were in every nook and cranny. But also, it also spoke to the fact that there was only one question on the ballot, really two. So you didn't have a whole lot of headache about, will this break the bank, not break the bank, is this a good idea, who's in for it, who's opposed to it, where you get these initiatives and you just about go crazy trying to do it. So it was a simple ballot. So therefore people could do it quickly. When they got to their house, they could say yes or no and move on. And so therefore there was a great turnout, but there was also a lot of money put into it for the recall. You can guess why, but anyway, we did that. The last election was I forgot the actual percent. It was a little over 50% of the actual, 57% of those who were registered to vote. Now, people say, well, that's lower than it was the last time in the last election. Of course, because the last election was a presidential election and we had Biden and Trump and everybody else. So everybody voted in that election. But the other piece was, it's hard for us they claim the turnout was better because our numbers are greater, like anything. If we increase the number of registered voters, it's going to be harder to get the percentage that we got before. If we wipe out half of them, we'll probably have 80% turnout, So it's hard when you're bringing in new people to actually talk about it. But I understand from most of the press reports is that the turnout was actually greater than what has been in past off-year elections or with the mid-year elections when it's just the governor running. Also, it's what's at the top of the ticket. There was really very little controversy in the last election. And there may have been issues at the lower level of Congress and so forth and so on, but not really. It was an election that had a lot of things in it that were highly controversial, other than the initiatives. And people will vote for people first and then think about the initiatives. We're looking at how we can, in 2024, make the initiative process easier. Some people have wanted us to have the initiative done separately. That I'm not sure people would come out to vote on initiatives if they weren't voting for the governor or whoever else. Okay, so it's not likely that would be helpful. But we're looking at how we can create an impartial body from my office that would actually help with some of the analysis and do some town hall meetings and what have you to help people understand what the initiative really does, because it is so confusing and we have lost so many things through the initiative process. Some of you remember in 2020 when we lost the bail issue. We had fought for many, many years to get the elimination of bail in California. And we were able to do that with the judges and the courts and everybody. So we finally elected in the legislature, got rid of bail. We did. Everything's based on a threat assessment. So that just because you have money doesn't mean you're going to get out of jail. And you're dangerous, so you're not going to get out of jail. And someone got on the ballot, got on TV, and twisted everybody around in circles. And most people thought they were voting to eliminate bail, and they were voting to eliminate the law that eliminated bail. And so as a result, we end up where we started 10 years before with bail in our system. And people still having to pay bail when they're not a threat at all. So we're looking at what we can do in the initiative process that would make it easier for people to understand, have an opportunity to have a conversation about it. So we're looking at whether we would do town halls or whether we do some kind of other technology meeting or in-person meetings to help explain what the initiatives are. Those are the propositions are the hardest things for people to vote on because half of them they don't understand. They understand the ones that they like, and that they're part of. But we have so many on our ballot. And when we've talked about getting rid of the initiative process, people's hair would go on fire. They will not give up the initiative process even though they know it's flawed. We are planning to do a bill this year. It's coming, our office is recommending it coming through the office that will change our recall process. And, you know, some states don't have recall. They have elections, and that's it. You pick what you want, you don't get them, unless this person has committed a crime or something of that nature. We don't have that. And people, it's interesting, in our conversations that we had after the recall election, people don't want to get rid of it. They want the ability to get rid of people. And they don't want to have a reason to get rid of people. They don't want to put it so it becomes like an impeachment process where you have to have a violation of something in order to get taken out of office. They just want to get rid of people if they want to get rid of them. So that's the big issue. So what we're doing with consensus is that we are going to separate the questions so that when you make a decision that you want to do a recall, you vote on that, period. Do you want to recall this person? So the conversation is really more about, is this person, you know, good enough to stay in office, or they have done something so wrong that they need to be removed. Once that issue is decided, in the piece that we've done, is that then the lieutenant governor becomes governor. And then there's an election that's held, depending on whether it's the end of a cycle or beginning of a cycle or middle of a cycle. There will be a special election that would only deal with the issue of the replacement. But when you have to balance the replacement and the recall issue, you know, it's a 6.5 dozen, and a lot of folks who could be good governors wouldn't run in a recall process against somebody who is their friend. And now if the person is removed from office, you'd end up with different kind of candidates and a different kind of election. So you won't end up with 100 and some people running for governor because they want their name on a ballot. So anyway, yes.
A little while back, you had mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you had mentioned about a lot of bills that you have passed in the history in your time as a legislator, and how you had started a process where you were having the state go back and take a look at some of those laws and try to verify whether those laws were being in effect. Does anything stand out to you so far? I know it hasn't been that long. I don't know how long. It's just been a while since you mentioned it. But is there anything that stands out, and are people obeying those laws? What's the status?
Right. It's interesting you mentioned to me, because I just spoke with one of the officer, vice president of the Black Caucus and others, because we have to order an audit. And I had suggested to him that I wanted them to order an audit of all of these bills that talked about social justice and what have you, and see whether or not they're being implemented. And I say that because some of them are half implemented. It's like legislation. If you don't pay attention to what happens with your legislation, by the time you're in and you're out and you're gone, it's sitting in the files, but it's not implemented at all. Or it's partially implemented. Or you find, one of the problems we had with one of our bills was the bill that dealt with lethal force, and said you cannot use lethal force unless your life is being threatened. You just can't arbitrarily go around here shooting people because you think they're a threat. You have to have evidence that they're a threat to you, and then before you use lethal force. Well, we passed the bill, and we've been in court ever since, although when people are implementing the bill, because many law enforcement agencies don't want to implement the bill. They said it really wasn't anything, that they don't have to de-escalate situations. They can still do what they always did. So we find that that's a problem in training and other things. So we went to court, and as a result, we won in court. So now they've got to work on de-escalation and a couple of other things. But agencies will decide what they want to do with your bill. You know, where you're mandating certain things, and if nobody pays attention to it, everybody's happy and dancing in the street that they got a bill passed, and discover that it's not being adequately implemented or it's not being funded. You know, so part of it is actually funding the bill, you know, getting the legislature to create the funds that might be necessary for the work or the research or the development of whatever it is that you're advocating. So we are in the process of requesting an audit of all the bills to see how they're being implemented and if they're being implemented. Because a lot of them don't get implemented. Or they're partially implemented, you know, that kind of stuff. And like people can go into jails. You can go in jail and register people to vote in county jails. But everybody doesn't know that. And the jails, if you go there, they'll look at you kind of crazy and cross-eyed and won't let you in to register people. Unless you are very persistent. And we have folks who are really persistent, who are advocates who are persistent, and yet they get in. But a lot of jails won't let people in to register people to vote. Yeah, so you have to pay attention to it, yes. They're both. In my building in Sacramento, the California Archives are there. It has a whole, I don't know how many floors, but they have a whole section that's temperature controlled and a whole bit. So they're in the Secretary of State's building in Sacramento. So we have the archives there, but they're also online because when COVID hit, they realized they needed to make their stuff much more accessible, particularly for kids who are in school, because a lot of the schools would come for their tours. So they started doing a lot of stuff online. And so they realized that that's pretty effective for everybody. So you can go online with sos.ca.gov and click on it. My website will come up and you look on the archives, you click that and you run, and by then you can pick what you want. And if you go to Sacramento, you can always visit the archives. Yes.
Unrelated to your job, Secretary of State, reading the club's newsletter, you mentioned you were born in Hope, Arkansas. I've driven through there, Mike and I have driven through there, and you know that there's another person born there, William Clinton.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you ever had the opportunity to meet him and discuss your usual birthplace.
You know what? When I was on the school board, I served on a number of national commissions dealing with education, and Tom Pazon and I went across the country. And one of the first persons I met at the Rockefeller Foundation at one of the meetings was Hillary Clinton. And she was on the commission with me and working on how we can reach different kids at different levels and so forth and so on. And so as a result, everybody had to introduce themselves, tell where you're from, blah, 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 blah. And I introduced and said I was from Hope, Arkansas. And she immediately woke up. And after the meeting, she came over and she said, I have never in my life run across anybody from Hope, Arkansas, except for Bill, you know. And she said, so I said, well, a few of us made it out, you know. And so anyway, yes, I've met her, and I've met Bill Clinton several times. We've gone to, when he used to come to town at Coronado, we would meet him at the airport. Bob Filner was big in doing that kind of thing. He and Bill Clinton were good friends. And I've served on a number of committees with Hillary Clinton over the years. And so yes, but he's from Hope, and his grandfather was in Hope and lived close to my relatives. They knew him. And he knew my cousins because he loved to party. And when he was in Little Rock, he would always go and party with my cousins at Philander Smith. So when I met with him, he knew my cousin, who at the time was president of the school board in Little Rock. And we went to Little Rock to help him pass his initiatives concerning education. They were trying to improve Arkansas's educational system because they had such a low pay for teachers, like $15,000 or something like that, something ridiculous. The Secretary of State of Education, I think she made $20-some thousand. This was in the 1990s, I mean. And her contract, though, allowed her to be consultant out so she could make more money. But he did a lot of things to change the salaries of teachers, to change the requirements, and all those things to really drag Arkansas into the present. And when I was with the National Alliance for Restructuring Schools, is what it was called. We went to Arkansas. We held our board meeting there with him to basically help him get his legislation passed through the House and the Senate in Arkansas. So I have met him, yes.
I have a question about the initiative process that I spoke of. There's AB 257 initiative to overturn that law that fast food.
Would do what? I'm not hearing you. You said the fast food workers? Oh, the initiative that's to change the AB 257.
AB 257, and
Now that was a law that was passed.
law that was passed,
Well, right, 257, and they're now trying to overturn 257.
and to overturn it, to the fast food industry. I think it's terrific legislation that protects fast food.
Sure.
Long needed.
Mm-hmm.
The industry is going to come up with an overwhelming barrage of misinformation.
Yes.
If the initiative passed, and as part of the process, I think your report is to get the word out. How can that be countered? So that,
How can it be countered?
how can we counter the misinformation?
Well, you know, I mean, one of the ways to do it, obviously, is with correct information in terms of encountering it. But that's a part of the initiative process, unfortunately, that And that was one of the things people wanted to take out, the fact that, you vote to elect your assembly member, your senator, whomever, and you entrust that person to pass laws on your behalf. And they pass them, and then you go with a group of people who, most of them don't even live in California, but who make money in California. And they will basically put it on the ballot, put a lot of money into it. I imagine that the 257, the initiative process concerning 257 will be funded immensely, and there's been efforts to try to limit the way people can fund those initiatives. They have all failed. So the industry is a very powerful force against much of what you want. And it's going to take a tremendous amount of work from a part of labor, a part of Democratic clubs, if they believe in the initiative, the fast food workers' rights. And it will take a lot, because they're going to invest a lot of money. A lot of money was invested in the initiative against bail, a lot of money. And we got sold out by a whole bunch of people who made $2 and $3 million to stand up and make commercials that they knew weren't true. So it'll be hard, it's gonna be hard. But it's not impossible. Some initiatives did not pass, but keep in mind, California loves its initiatives. If it were up to me, I would eliminate all initiatives in the state of California. I really would. And I say that because initiatives say to people, it's the money that counts. If you have a lot of money, you can undo laws that people have fought for years. And I didn't, like I said, I kind of felt that way before, but after we lost bail, after we lost the bail battle in 2020, I knew then that something was definitely wrong. Because the bail initiative, we had spent years discussing bail in California, showing how that poor people paying bail was breaking the bank. Maybe they were in jail because they couldn't pay for a ticket or something of that nature. They got stopped. They had to do time in jail. Many of them lost their jobs because they couldn't go to work. They couldn't bail themselves out. And then they were let go in 3 or 4 days. By then, your whole world is turned upside down. They were not a threat to anybody. They had a parking ticket or whatever it was. And yet a man comes in who's beat up his wife and everything else, and he has money, and he gets bailed out of jail and goes and beat her up again. And they have these stories over and over about that because it's such an unfair system. So after we worked for years, me, Tony Atkins, all the people, players in it, we worked to get it done. We worked with the Supreme Court Justice in California. She was very much in favor of it. And the Supreme Court, most of our judges, they formed a committee to look at bail, because a lot of them were opposed to it. And then they realized that bail was so unfair. And we had done research on it. The UCLA's research showed that in South Central LA, I forgot how many billions of dollars were spent on bail every year from poor people in Los Angeles. So this was really an effort to get a just law and to get it in place and have it so that people would be assessed based on their risk. You wouldn't just walk out of jail. If you had a low risk, if you weren't beating up people and didn't carry any guns, and you just really had that, you could get out of jail without having to pay bail and promise to come back and so forth and so on. And to lose that in we worked on that for years, and lose it in an election where the bail folks came and dumped a bunch of money in California, got one woman to sit on TV and pretend that she's past president NAACP, to talk about how bail was going to mess up families, and everybody believed her because they knew who she was. And she made something like $2 million doing this. To me, it was tragic after all the work we had done. So, I have nothing good to say about initiative process. I think some things have to go to the ballot because obviously they're changing the Constitution, and when we try to change something, a law that makes it fair or whatever, it has to go to the people to vote because it's changing the Constitution. But to go in to fight against a bill that was passed, duly passed and fairly passed in the legislature, and you substitute the legislature's vote for this company that comes in with money, which is what's going to happen. All the fast food restaurants are going to buy into this, and therefore you become the victims of it. And there's more money spent on the initiatives than probably any campaign in California. They'll dump everything they can because they make money on the issue that is before you, which will deal with people who are fast food workers having some rights. So I would suggest to you, start talking, because they're going to get the initiative signed. It's going to probably get enough signatures signed because of the fact they pay people to get signatures. And as a result, they'll get enough and it'll get on the ballot. And so you'll be battling that in 2024.
So of course blocked the initiative from going forward. It's supposed to start January.
Right.
Has that been appealed? How can the court block the initiative?
Well, because there's a group that's challenging it. And so rather than implement it and then discover that the challenge was valid, and then you have to undo everything. So anytime there's an attack on an issue and you file for an injunction, you're probably going to get it because you don't want to implement something where people have gone to court and proven it's wrong. So it's been stopped. Anytime you start with that process, the same with bail. You start it, you get it working, and then somebody comes in and files an order against it, and there's an appeal, there's a recall, and there's all these other documents that's going to happen. It's at that point the law is stopped from being implemented until after the election. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Weber, could you give us an update on the progress of the reparations task force?
Yeah, the reparations task force is, I just met with some of them the other day, they're rounding into their last 4 months. The original document is on their website. The Department of Justice has the original document. They're the ones in charge of the process. And the final document will be out the end of June. And it will go before the legislature at that time as the final document with recommendations that's there. So far, they've made pretty good progress in terms of getting information out, having hearings. Anyone's interested in reparations, the reparations task force, all of their hearings are online with the Department of Justice and the reparations. All of them are the initial, the preliminary document is online. I think it's either 500 or 1,000 pages. I can't remember which one, but they do have a summary and a synopsis. There will be a hearing this weekend on Friday and Saturday. The 3rd and 4th of March is another hearing. It's going to be in Sacramento, but all of their hearings are online. So anybody who wants to, they can click on Department of Justice, find the reparations, find the time of the hearing, and they can listen to it on the website. Yeah. So we're optimistic that it'll be a good report and that will show that there's some need to do some unique things in terms of changing the narratives for African Americans in California. Any other questions? Yes.
Madam Secretary, I know you used to deal with this a lot more when you were state assembly member. I'm curious your thoughts. Gun control. In California, it seems like it's getting worse, of course. How do you think the needle is moving? Is more control being implemented or less, and what do you think is happening?
Yeah, well, California is not as bad as the other states, in terms of the shootings that occur. If you look at the number of shootings that have happened and those kinds of things in schools and places, and we're not, and we do implement our laws concerning gun control. Our problem is that the states all around us are selling guns. And people are going over there and buying them at gun fairs and this and so forth and so on. But California has implemented the laws, and they have begun the laws, and they've implemented them so that we do have some controls. We do have the registration and time frame, so forth and so on. So we do, but we live in the United States, so people can go in any state and buy a gun that's out of California, and there's no waiting period in some places. And so that's the real challenge that we face, is that we live in the United States. There are the federal government has not done much, despite all of the horrible stuff that's happened across the country. They have done almost nothing to put some control on guns. And it's unfortunate, that we're so supposedly highly civilized and yet so barbaric in our use of lethal force and guns and all those things that are there. And it's tragic. I was reading something the other day, I forgot how many deaths have occurred just since the beginning of the year. It's like 70 or 80 deaths or something that have occurred through these mass shootings. It's inconceivable that is happening, and people just go along their little happy way with no thought whatsoever as to what their responsibility should be concerning the use of force in this country. And other states are just appalled at the fact that, the most quote-unquote civilized nation in the world is so uncivilized when it comes to violence and death of individuals. But we do implement our laws, and but we live in the United States, and people can go across the border or wherever they want to go and amass lots of weapons. It's quite tragic. It's truly, truly a blemish on our society. One more question. Yes.
What is your opinion of ranked choice?
Okay. Well, let me ask a question. Do you guys know what ranked choice voting is? You do? Not really? Okay, let me tell you what it is. And then I'll ask how many of you like it. Ranked choice voting, and ranked choice voting says that you vote, and when you vote, you rank who you want. So maybe you can rank 5. So you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Once you do that, then it goes in, and then there's these algorithms, some mathematical stuff, and I don't know anything about that. Algorithms that are in play that happen, and so as a result, you get the first set, and maybe you number 1 at the first set, and somebody else. Then they start looking at who was number 2, and then you find out that you now are number 4 because 2 and 3 jumped ahead of you, and so there's this mathematical, I won't say game, but this algorithm that they talk about that exists, and we're kind of embroiled in a problem in Oakland right now with the ranked choice voting. People now realize that they didn't know what they were doing when they did it, and they agreed to it, and so now complaining to me. I said, hey, you people voted it in, and so as a result, they don't like the fact that the person who was running for mayor was on the top for a long time, and then in the end he turned up like number 3 or 4, and so one guy told me that he didn't like ranked choice voting. This older guy, he said, because the only guarantee you have is you're gonna get somebody nobody really likes. He said, so it varies. Some states, some cities do it, and it very little glitches to it. I've been told that it doesn't work well on more than 5 candidates, that if you get past 5, you really got a mess on your hands. And Oakland had 9 people with all these algorithms and stuff going on. And then people have difficulty trying to figure out, can you explain it to somebody, and can you verify that that's really what took place? We had an issue in Oakland. One, of course, people who didn't win were mad, but in addition to that, they put in the wrong algorithm. And so some guy in the school board who lost should have won. And so we're dealing with that, but that's ranked choice. That's what ranked choice is. There's an effort to put ranked choice in the state, to make it in the state. And then there are a number of cities that have done it over the years. San Francisco, I think, does ranked choice voting, and it works well if everybody understands and if people are educated about it. One of the problems that happened in the most recent one with Oakland is that people were not informed as to what it really was. And if you only vote once, I don't know these other people, I'm just gonna vote for my person, you pretty much have disenfranchised yourself through the process. Because it's the other numbers that also count. Who's 2, who's 3, who's 4. And if you just that you picked number 1 and that's it, you then have not fully exercised your right to vote, to participate in the process, because who's number 2 and 3 and 4 will count in the end as who wins. And so some of the communities had not been fully informed that they needed to vote the whole thing. They need to vote for 5 people or whatever it is, because otherwise you only have the 1 shot and everybody else has 4 of the shots. So you have to understand the process. So there's an effort to do ranked choice. People have said that when I've met with them, they believe ranked choice will create greater diversity in the selection of who gets to win, who gets to be the person. Now there's no data for that. There's no evidence for that. I don't know where they came from it with, because I've looked at it and I've not seen anything that certain people are more advantaged than others. And they think it'll save money because you don't have to deal with runoffs. You don't have a primary, you just have 1 election. There's no primary, there's no gleaning down of people, and you end up with a group at the end. So it's like 1 election, boom, and that's it. And however the algorithms twist and turn, that's how you end up. They think it's a fair process. I don't know how it could be fair. I have not seen what corruption or whatever they think is out there it's correcting. So I'm not easily influenced by newfangled dangle stuff. And I'm just telling you, because I'm one of these, if you win, you win, kind of people. And I can explain that to people. I can't explain ranked choice voting. I can't explain algorithms. I can't, all that stuff. And so what happens is that when people don't win, and they start off winning and then they end up losing, they become skeptics about the algorithm. Was it correct? Was it this? Was it that? So we'll see. But it has to go, thus far it hasn't gone, we haven't agreed to it at the state level. I would never agree to implement it. If it was up to me, I would not at a state level. It would be just chaos to try to do it with the gubernatorial races and all these other races. I mean, I could see the numbers and the algorithms rolling around and trying to figure out what's going on. But some of the small cities are looking into it. Some of them already, are looking into that as an alternative to to what they have, because some of them don't have primaries as it is. They just have one election, and that person, whoever wins, whether they get 50% or less, sometimes wins. So that's always an issue that's there. But it is coming. The conversation is coming. If you want to, there's some folks who really gun-ho ranked choice. I think Steve Peace, he's met with me about it. He and his son are gun-ho ranked choice. And they want me to get on board, but I haven't seen anything to get on board with. I have to be able to explain it, not only to myself, but to other people as well. And you have to tell me what's wrong with the current system. Now that, I'm looking for that. What is wrong with the current system? A lot of people do things because it's just fun. You do change stuff up. But I want to know what's wrong. If you tell me what's wrong and how this is going to correct it, then I can see that. But no one has told me yet what is wrong with the top vote getter winning the election. I don't know. So if you find why, tell me. So you can tell I'm not a big ranked choice fan. Yeah. But cities have the opportunity to do that if they choose to. Well, I've spent a good time with you this evening. I want to thank you for inviting me in. I appreciate you. You guys are one of my favorite Democratic clubs. You always have lots of people, and you do a great job. And I really, really appreciate you so much. You guys do a really good job, and I appreciate you. What else you want to say?
We were your favorite.
Oh, they're one of my favorite Democratic clubs. And you guys always have good turnout and good people and have fun with each other. And I think that's exciting. I don't get the rancor and the drama that I see in some Democratic clubs, But your folks come with a smile on their face. They like seeing each other. They do a good job, and I know you're going to help with all the initiatives and all the things that's going to happen in November not November 2024, but March 2024 as well. So get ready, it's coming soon. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah. Where's Alan? Oh, come on up. Alan Durden is the representative for the La Mesa Juneteenth Foundation, right? Did I get that right? I don't have my cheat sheet. So he's going to be talking to us about the second Juneteenth that will be 2023. Let's welcome him.
Just first, I just wanted to personally introduce Alan Durden to you. He lives in a lot of our neighborhoods. He's within walking distance from my husband's and my home. His parents live right around the corner from us, like 2 houses down. And he is a frat brother to my husband, which I will leave the room when they start talking, because it just gets, crazy. They're so competitive. But Alan is a dear friend of my husband's and mine, and he and I have worked together along with others, including Dr. Castaños and many others, in the first event that we held last year. And he did so much work behind the scenes and supported our event 100%. And I want y'all to recognize him, because if any of you heard about that event last year, you really would have to stand and give him a standing ovation, okay? So Alan Durden, our dear friend, please welcome him.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Patricia left out that she is a big part of Juneteenth. How many people attended Juneteenth last year? Okay, not everybody. Our goal is to get everybody to participate in Juneteenth. Last year, Patricia and I got a permit for 249 people to show up to MacArthur Park to celebrate Juneteenth. We exceeded over 1,500 people. And we had a celebration that you would not believe. We were on the front page of the Union Tribune. We were covered by ABC, CBS, NBC, and had gavel-to-gavel coverage from KUSI. So this was an event that the county, the state was looking at because of the history of La Mesa and what happened in 2020, what happened down the line. People are looking at La Mesa. La Mesa's growing. I was one of those guys that wanted to keep La Mesa Mayberry. Okay? Pass me up. We have the Jefferson Building. Huge monumental. Lots of people. We have apartment buildings coming up. All over the county, all over La Mesa. We have people coming into La Mesa of all creeds, all colors, black, white. Oh, can you guys hear me?
Would you rather walk around with that mic?
Yeah, I get kind of ramped up when I talk, so I'll do that. But we got all kinds of people coming into La Mesa, and we need to celebrate all people of La Mesa. We celebrate October 5th. We have a good time at Oktoberfest. We celebrate Cinco de Mayo. Good celebration, 4th of July. It's time to celebrate African Americans. It's time to celebrate their contribution, not only to La Mesa, but to the country. And I think La Mesa is just a key location for us to do this. I mean, it's the East County. We've had so many problems in the East County, and I remember when I was in high school, I couldn't go past Grossmont High School. That was as far as we could go, is Grossmont High School. Now again, I learned back in the day where my parents moved to La Mesa, we had a petition to get us kicked out of La Mesa. La Mesa's changed. We have to change with it. And I'm asking for your help, not as a Democratic Party, but as an individual person and as an individual business to come out and support Juneteenth. We are going to be giving out letters for donations, for memberships, for volunteers, for suggestions, for everything that you can think of. We need your help. Now for last year, believe it or not, we probably had 30% African American and 70% white people at Juneteenth. And the volunteers were probably 80-20. This is not a celebration for just African Americans. This is a celebration for everybody because we all contributed. We all contribute to where we are today. So, I'm just asking you, think about Juneteenth. It's coming quickly. Think about what you would like to do with Juneteenth. You can talk to Patricia, you can talk to Janet, you can talk to myself, and let us know how you can help Juneteenth become successful. And we want to grow this. We don't want to outgrow La Mesa, but we want to grow it to where we can do things other than just the celebration of Juneteenth, give scholarships, help people who need help, do other things that this club is trying to do as well, but enhance that. So I just wanted to let you guys know Juneteenth is here. Please, 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 please talk to one of us and get involved. And thank you guys very much for having me, and I appreciate it.
Go to our website, you can volunteer, you can make a donation on our website. By the way, Max Man is taking care of us.
There you go, Max. I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce you.
So glad that we have him. There's people that have stepped up for us, and they've been a huge blessing.
Yes.
So please support us, and make sure you took your calendar. It's going to be on Sunday.
Sunday, June 18th, on Father's Day at MacArthur Park.
At MacArthur Park, that's where we had it before. People
That is correct.
love MacArthur Park. We're surprised to get in there and realize how nice it is. And come out, make sure you tell your family members, your friends, and invite them to come. Everyone is welcome.
Absolutely. And we expect close to 5,000 people, we hope, this year. So people coming to La Mesa to see the businesses and to spend money, and that's what we want them to do. So thank you guys. Oh, question?
What entertainment is there going to be?
There's going to be entertainment. Great. We have the Martin Luther King Choir, who was one of our mainstays. We have different entertainers from all over San Diego, and actually we're going to be doing some auditions this year. Last year we just let people come on up and talk and do some spoken words. This year we're going to have some auditions and have some excellent talent. We're going to have some choirs, we're going to have spoken words, and if you guys don't know what spoken words are, it's just kind of like rhyming, talking, and letting, rapping, but slowly so you can understand.
And a family center.
Dancing,
for
kids
children.
zone, yep.
I mean, the only reason why the children cry is because
Because they
the
gotta
parents
leave.
took them away from it.
Yeah.
That was the only reason. There was arts and crafts and just, it was just such an amazing,
Event, yeah.
experience, so.
Great. Any other questions? Max, thank you so much. Max actually volunteered to be our computer guy. And we need young guys, man, like this guy, because he's taught us so much that we didn't even know. So we're on that journey, and if you can help, we'd be glad to accept any kind of help we can get. Susie, you got anything? Anything? You good? Went to high school with this young lady right here. We've known each other for 40 years. Once a Scotty, always a Scotty.
Susie has like 0 degrees of separation from
Everybody. She knows everybody.
knows Susie.
But thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. I hope you guys can hear me. Good. Thank you guys.
Okay, how we doing, Katie? Last chance to buy 50/50 tickets. And it's time for announcements. Oh, sorry. If you would like to make an announcement, come on up here and you're gonna go on the stage. 1 minute.
Go ahead. 1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute timing.
Setting my timer, Steve.
Hi, everybody. Save the date, March 17th.
Nobody can hear you.
Speaker,
Steve,
whatchamacallit,
Steve,
Speaker
we have a mic.
McCarthy's office.
Steve, we have a mic.
Yeah, but
Use the mic.
I break them. I break them. At Speaker McCarthy's office in Bakersfield, free bus, read at the bottom. Local point of contact is Tish Leone. Her email address is there for the free bus on March 17th, Friday in the morning. Meet in Old Town, 7 a.m., Friday, March 17th, parking lot C. Parking lot C, free bus, Speaker McCarthy's office, protesting what might happen, the Social Security tax that the Republicans are playing with.
I'm Bonnie Price, I'm co-chair
You gotta talk
of
much
the
louder.
Domsky. What?
You gotta talk much louder into the mic.
Oh, hello.
Very
So, I'm Bonnie Price, I'm co-chair with Andy and Beth Domsky for finding candidates for the 2024 elections. I need your eyes and your mind to find candidates in the entire east area, from Lemon Grove to the Imperial County line. We have 350 positions, and about half of them are up in 2024. School boards, water boards, fire boards, planning boards, and for city council in Lemon Grove, Santee, El Cajon, and La Mesa. So please be in touch with me, Andrea Beth Dunsky, or the club president. We talk and help us find candidates. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. My name is Heather Ferbert. I am running for San Diego City Attorney, and I wanted to introduce myself. I am a Chief Deputy City Attorney in the office, and I became a lawyer because I believe that the law should deliver justice. And we all know that's not always what happens, but this office is critical to making sure that we continue to move that forward and to protect consumers, the environment, and our neighborhoods. I'm a Chief Deputy in the office, and through my work, I wrote the law that kept families in their homes during the pandemic to prevent them from being evicted. I have broken through the bureaucracy to help create more affordable housing in the city, and I worked hard to make sure that abortions were safe and accessible in San Diego after the horrifying Dobbs decision. I'm a working mother, and I know what our working families face and the youth face these days, especially with the increased cost of living. And I'm really excited to get started. I would love to connect with you. I have some cards, and I would love to meet you. So thank you so much for having me.
Repeat the name.
Heather Ferbert.
Good evening, I'm Doug Case. I am the local political affairs director for Senate President Pro Tem Tony Atkins. And two brief things. The major thing that the legislature is working on right now is the budget, and you probably have heard that it's going to be a challenging year. Unlike last year where we had a $97 billion surplus, this year we're starting off with a $22 billion deficit. But thanks to responsible budgeting in the past and building up our reserves, we're going to do some belt tightening, but it will not be as bad as it was in previous economic downturns. And we're going to be doing that without using our record reserves. We're saving the record rainy day funds in case the real recession does come. Anyway, the primary focus of the budget process, their theme this year is protect the progress we made in previous years. And secondly, many of you, in fact most Californians, received middle income tax credit refund last year, ranging between $200 and $1,050 depending upon your income and filing status and so forth. Some good news is that a few days ago, the IRS issued a ruling indicating that your tax refund that you received, either as a debit card or as in direct deposit, will not be taxable on your federal income tax. So that's good news. Thank you.
Okay, it's time to pick our 50-50 winner. As always, you get 50% of the money and the club keeps the other for candidate. All right. Ready? 0828544. I will repeat it one more time. 0828544. All right. Woo. What's your name? Donna. Donna what? Donna Smith. Okay, congratulations. That's for our. We're ready to adjourn the meeting. Remember, next month back here, April 5th, and our speaker will be Supervisor Nathan Fletcher. Thanks. Have a good night. Drive safe.